Because this is a gaming channel. This is gaming channel worthy. It is gaming news. It is a video game. There you go. Morons! Now, let's get it on. The Last of Us Part 2. Inside the World. Learn more as the team at Naughty Dog goes in depth about the new locations, factions, and threats you'll encounter in The Last of Us Part 2.
The world of The Last of Us is dangerous. Unless you're living in a protected area, there is something lethal around every corner. Once you venture out of your home, you're in danger. And where we're taking the story and where we're taking Ellie is like each step of the way, she's putting herself in more and more danger to bring these people to justice.
I would say that the world, in every sense of the word, is bigger than The Last of Us Part 1. Both in scale and the amount of physical space that exists for you to explore if you encounter other people.
Okay.
Yeah, this route has its perks.
Our hope is to make every corner a challenge, make every decision hard for Ellie. And so we do that not just in the gameplay you experience, but also in the level design. So part of that is making certain experiences really hostile, be it through weather,
Y'all see the snow on a horse's booty?
Or craggy cliffs, or slick snow. But we also use it in terms of how blind the player is. Like, what can they see? How safe do you feel? Can you see a threat coming around the corner? You never know if the bullets in your gun are going to be enough. You never know if you can stop and bandage your arm. You can never fully breathe. And we want you to be in alignment with Ellie.
Oh!
Breathe when she experiences this trauma.
For Jackson specifically,
We're going to be ready for
wanted
that
to
now,
make it
Naughty Dog.
feel like a very close-knit
Well,
kind of
I
community
can't say
that's
me
focused
'cause I'm
on
not playing,
family,
but, you know,
focused on
until I
sustainable
find
ways of
out
living.
certain
Obviously, we have
factors.
the hydroelectric dam generator that's powering the town, so we
You guys
have,
know that.
you know,
Although
electricity
certain
in
things
Jackson,
aren't true.
which is not something that maybe players would expect to see in the world. But
But those
given
that
that we're
definitely
further
are
in
playing
time, we
We're
wanted
going to
to
be
show
ready
that
for that.
there are certain people dedicated in the world to rebuilding a life that doesn't revolve around killing people and scavenging.
As you walk around the town, you can hear kids laughing. You could see people going into restaurants and eating, and it's a very kind of tranquil town. Now, we know there's all these horrible things happening outside the walls, but they've been able to protect
That's a cool
the
shot.
innocence of
Cool
this
kid.
town.
Jackson, in many ways, represents what is at stake for our characters. A life of peace and relative comfort. A life where you can fall in love. A place where children can play and it's okay. And I think, you know, when we were looking at building out Jackson, it's like, okay, how many of those moments can we represent? What's awesome about the world of The Last of Us
man!
shows just how precious the things that we take for granted in our everyday lives, how precious those things really are.
I need to see some Joel gameplay, though.
Seattle, compared to Jackson, is very different. It's more of a war zone, I would say.
Part of the interesting thing with Seattle or the Pacific Northwest is that there's all this rain and all this foliage and wildlife, and it's this very lush area that if someone were to settle down, it'd be a pretty good place to settle down just as far as the kind of fruit you can scavenge, the
Concept
animals you
art
can
is
hunt. And then because it is so lush, because it is so teeming with resources, is why there are multiple factions trying to fight over those resources. One faction you run into in Seattle is the Washington Liberation Front. When the outbreak happened, the military took some pretty drastic actions and quarantined parts of the country. And this was their way of protecting the population that survived this horrendous outbreak. And because of that, it led to a rise of
Quarantine, that
these
sounds familiar.
resistance groups. And in the first game, we saw the Fireflies. And we heard about other groups, and in this game we get to see, here's another group that rose called the Washington Liberation Front that was able to defeat the army and thereby take over a lot of their equipment. They're this very militaristic faction.
It's crazy. Did you see
And
the
at the
fire?
same time, you have the Seraphites. And they're a religious group that also came up out of the outbreak that believed that the pandemic came because
Of sin.
of sin.
Well, I tell you.
They're trying to reset the world and return it to a better place than it was.
In The Last of Us, almost any group that has survived this long has to be dangerous. If you're not dangerous, you're not going to survive. You're going to become someone's victim. And the two factions you run into are both very dangerous. The WLF has a lot of military equipment that they're able to use to defend area, and they have large numbers, whereas the Seraphites are very quiet and stealthy and able to use the large amount of foliage to their advantage, and they fight more in this kind of guerrilla warfare.
I'm so
How you
mad I
deal
ain't
with
gonna
them
get to
is
play
gonna
this.
be different because they have different language, they have different communication style. The scars will
Woo!
whistle
This looks good.
to each other with this different
Damn!
language. And they have some of the stuff that you have. You have a bow and arrow, they can hit you with arrows and impale you, and you have to pull the arrow out. They have big sledgehammers and melee weapons. WLF, they have trained dogs that will sniff and attack you.
Dogs are a new level of threat that Ellie hasn't had to negotiate before, and hopefully they create a new complicated choice for the player. We saw in them an opportunity to challenge people's perceptions of what a combat setup can be. We wanted to find really hard choices. The dogs themselves have names. They're called out by their owners. We wanted every setup to be challenging.
Woo! Detail!
Looks like Infected did this. How many do you think it would take to bring down a moose?
Infected are still a threat in this world.
Maybe
We
one of
wanted to
those
take
fat
first
ones.
our basic classes that we had in the first game and say, okay,
That's
how do
something we haven't
we,
seen.
what's different about them now? So we'll have scenarios where way more runners, like we're gonna have hordes sometimes of runners coming after you, and it might be about just escaping because the odds are just overwhelming. You know, this thing just keeps mutating. There's certain evolutions of infected that you haven't seen before, certain new classes.
There's the Shamblers, which kind of have these exploding acid clouds when you get near them.
You're running down a hallway and you have to suddenly make a decision like, oh, do I want to take the damage and go through this cloud, or find some other route, or go back the way I came? And it kind of forces you to, on the fly, kind of make new decisions about how you're going to deal with the threat behind you or potentially in front of you.
So again, it's about how do we make fighting against infected intelligent. So when you come into space, you're listening to audio cues because different classes will make different sounds. If you just go in guns blazing and throw caution to the wind, you could easily get overwhelmed and regret that strategy.
That level of uncertainty and instability is something our characters have to carry with them every day as they go out into the world to protect the people they love most. And that threat is banging on their door every day.
I really hope you make it.
I love that shot. The detail that they put in that, just the realism of her face. That fear, like, what? Like, what's out there, motherfucker? Because of sin, all of you are walking around with mushroom heads, okay? If the Lord was happy with what you were doing, you would be blessed. But no. You were walking around in Satan's mushrooms. Bow our heads, please. This makes me so sad. You know, because I'll just have to wait for the next Nathan Drake game. Hopefully nothing crazy is done with his story. There's got to be another Nathan Drake. Come on. It's got to be. There's got to be another one. Come on. PS5. Come on. There's got to be. Oh, man. Well, I'm looking forward to those game reviews. They're not like 5 minutes long. I'm looking for those 45-minute, hour-long breakdowns of exactly what's what. I'm going to have to know. For real, know. If I'm going to play this. Y'all already know. Y'all been following me. Y'all know. The haters watch every single video. You get banned every video. You notice your comments never show up? Have you noticed it still? But yeah, man, going from that first one, absolutely loving that, to this. People are saying, and the small details don't happen. But two big things apparently still do. And I hope they're not true. That rhymes ain't to play at the game. Bars. Because if they are, then, yeah. Now, quite possibly, if there is a way to avoid those two major things, playing a specific way, and certain things happening, then maybe I'll consider it. Like, Tyrone, okay, listen, when you beat this clicker, okay, you have to kick it in the nuts and tie the rope around its neck. That triggers the scene for this to happen. That way this doesn't happen. And they live. And then you don't have to play as this person. You play as that person. And then you can finish the game. Oh! Okay, maybe then. Now that's as long as I have to deal with that both of those bullshit parts of the story, I'm good. Unless I'm paid handsomely to play it through and to give a unbiased review that Rhyme Night played the game. Bars. But all things being said, hats off to Naughty Dog for creating an incredible specimen of a game. I know it's going to be incredible for those that don't care about the story and don't care about the leaks. It's going to be incredible. But I'll just have to wait for their next endeavor, unless certain things can be bypassed. I know I'm not just talking about skipping cutscenes. But yeah. Nathan Drake it is, baby! Post comments down below. Let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed my reaction to this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. If you did not, you can kiss my black derriere, and you know you're going to get banned. Please, after posting something hateful, look for your comment. Look for it. Refresh your screen and look for your comment. See if it's still there. 10 million subscribers.